Hello, I am Nimja, and this is Nimja Live, August 2020, with the theme Sweet Self-Esteem. Hello everyone, and before we begin, I would as always like to thank the continued support of my patrons and donators. Over 1,175 on Patreon right now, but it will probably be more in the next few days. The numbers always are a bit fluctuating in the beginning of the month. I guess that's the downside of doing the Nimja Live on the first Sunday. Also, the recording, of course, will be available on the site with the background music. And that is on hypno.nimja.com/listen. And welcome everyone. For those of you that don't know, the way this works is first we're going to discuss the theme, which is sweet self-esteem. Then we will do the trance itself, which is about a quarter past. And after the trance, there will be a Q&A. So please wait with your cues until it's time for them. The cue for your cues will come. It's really nice to see that there's several new people as well. And yes, the chat always becomes a little quieter. The theme today is sweet self-esteem. And I am very curious to see what kind of things you guys consider to be relevant to self-esteem. In a way, it's kind of ironic to discuss self-esteem from my perspective, because I wonder what's the, how I would view my own self-esteem, if it is strong or not. And in a way, I would consider myself just a normal person with my own insecurities. Self-belief and confidence, and acceptance of compliments. And apologies that I also have to write down some of the suggestions. Acceptance of compliments, self-belief. Ooh, very nice. Accepting your faults. Mistakes and faults. Feeling stronger. And I'm sure that there's a little bit of ASMR pen noises while I'm writing. Comfortable with who you are. Let me see. Self-acceptance, worthy of love. Honesty about your own abilities, interesting. I'm curious, how do I say this? I'm curious if people think that self-esteem is a skill or not. Like a school lesson. Oh, that's not the intention. All the files, and especially the live events, are improvised. They are basically being made while I make them. Okay with being normal. Interesting one. Like accepting that you don't have to be a special snowflake, which apparently is a interesting problem for one specific generation. You can wait with your questions until after the trance. Also, Some of the questions are actually answered on the site. Forgiving yourself. Now, I also did the effort of actually reading the Wikipedia page about self-esteem. And that was a very interesting read. One excerpt of that is, childhood experiences that contribute to healthy self-esteem include being listened to, being spoken to respectfully, receiving appropriate attention and affection, and having accomplishments recognized and mistakes or failures acknowledged and accepted. I also looked a bit further than Wikipedia, but it was difficult to find a clean source. And welcome to the Nimja school class now. Curing perfectionism. It's more like the creator's curse, where you're always too critical of the work that you make. A lot of people your age struggle with the feeling of not being the main character. Well, unless you have bright blue or pink hair, I believe you're not a main character in any anime show. And yes, it's nice to have a value of others. So let's see. Okay with not being the main character. Yeah, with being normal, you are always the main character of your own life. You don't have to save the whole world. And it's not about lowering your perfect standards. I don't think there's anything wrong with striving for something, as long as you also accept that you don't always have to finish everything at the same time. And while learning disabilities are indeed important, I don't think they fit with this specific file. I'm also not a therapist. This is a very light, inspirational thing, and it is not a replacement for any therapy. Learning to deal with the voice inside that calls out every fault. Sociable and outgoing is nice, but being social doesn't have anything to do with self-esteem. Being social is a skill as well. We're all individuals. And the one thing that goes for everyone is that we're all special. In a way, yes. We're all unique snowflakes, but that also means we're all just snowflakes. And indeed, you don't have to compare yourself to others. Focus on your own improvement and achievements. It's a good way of being One thing I have learned is that it's very helpful to phrase things in the positive. If someone says, don't compare yourself to others, it's much more healthy to say, you're allowed to focus on yourself. And indeed, accept and even celebrate mistakes. Although there's a difference between self-esteem and confidence. But that's an even more complicated one. And for those of you who are curious, there's a very short online comic about a girl with pink hair that doesn't want to be the main story. A single snowflake is useless in making a snowy landscape. I mean, stretching the snowflake comparison isn't ideal either. People have, their value. People have their own parts to play in their life. And some of those parts are, more influential than others. All right, anyway, I think I have enough. I will do my best to make this something nice. The thought behind calling it sweet self-esteem is, rather than making it a lesson, just sort of making it nice. Anyway, please prepare yourself, get into a comfortable pose. Headphones definitely help. And I would say this is sort of a inspirational comfort file. Let me see to make sure that I'm also ready to continue. There we go. And this indeed is a good moment to mention the spiral, although I hadn't begun yet. I'll wait 2 more minutes because, like I said, we begin at 1:15. And very nice that you're all wrapped up comfortable. Although, isn't it really warm in most places of the world right now? Difficult, lemon difficult. That was a wonderful moment last time. Yeah, but if you use an air conditioner to cool yourself and then go blankets, that's just a waste of energy. Anyway, I think we're basically ready. And yeah, each little click and tap is heard. All right. Well, I hope you can still hear me. Let's begin. Hello, I am Nimja, and this is Nimja Live, Sweet Self-Esteem. This file is an inspiration to allow some subtle changes possible in your life. And yet, it's also just a moment of relaxation, of something sweet and gentle. One of those moments where you're allowed to just sit down and relax. Maybe even laying down, listening to a bedtime story, or who knows. It's really nice sometimes to listen to let yourself drift and just focus on the things outside of you. Because while you listen, your body will do all kinds of nice things. For example, you might notice that while my words continue to flow, your breathing will slow. And as your breathing slows, so does the activity in your head. There might still be some thoughts spread around, but they're fine. They're completely natural to have. This is not like sleeping after all. No, this is more like a moment of relaxation, a time out of reality, if you will. Because sometimes all we need is a moment's rest. Now I would like you to participate just a little. It'll be really easy. All you have to say is yes. And when I ask a question, you'll find that saying yes and relaxing into that answer will feel really nice, comfortable. Are you ready? That's right. Yes. And while you are listening, you may notice that answering yes will get easier, because that would be nice, wouldn't it? As if each and every answer allows you to focus a little more, so that you can let go and listen. Because that would be really nice, wouldn't it? And each and every answer allows you to listen a little better. Do you feel that? And it's nice when your body slows down and your breathing follows the simple words, so that you can let go a little more with each and every yes, all right? Very good. Now with each and every yes, you'll also find that the words I speak can flow into your unconscious. You don't have to do anything for this. The answering just helps you to get into the right frame of mind. Okay? Very nice. Every answer is just another step deeper. Sometimes you might find yourself saying yes whenever there's a pause, even if I haven't asked a question yet. Because responding automatically can feel really nice. Now, while you're feeling nice, I'd like to discuss some things related to self-esteem, all right? They're very simple. They're very basic things that each one of us kind of knows, but it might sometimes be strange to accept it. But you'd like to, wouldn't you? I'm sure that you like the idea of being listened to, heard, and understood. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? And the same goes for the other way, that when someone talks to you, that you're spoken to respectfully, treating you with dignity. Now the other things are a bit more complex. For example, wouldn't it be nice if you allowed yourself to appreciate the attention and affection that people around you have for you? Because the more you appreciate that, the more you become aware of how much you actually get it. And with that also comes the recognition of the accomplishments in your environment. And it would be so nice to know that the things you do are appreciated, wouldn't it? And the same goes for any mistakes or failures that happen, because they're okay. It's all right to sometimes mess up a little. And it's really nice when people accept and help you learn from the things that happen, wouldn't it? One of the really nice things is that the more you allow yourself to just be you, to be normal, you don't need to be the main character of some fantastical adventure. You can be, if you like, but nobody will make you. Allow yourself to live your life, your story in your way, and appreciate the opportunities you get to learn, to become stronger, and be able to respond to the things that happen to you. Every part of your life, everything that happens to you, can allow you to grow from it. So, will you consider giving yourself that chance? Will you allow yourself to forgive yourself? Will you let yourself learn and grow from the things that you encounter? Can you accept that you are allowed to be the person of your story? You don't have to be special, and you still are. What you can give to the people around you and yourself is unique to you. And self-esteem is a skill, just like any other. It comes easier for some, and it's more difficult for others, and this is okay. Practice makes perfect. And we can't practice without making some mistakes. In fact, the mistakes are what we learn from the most. I hope that my words can give you a little comfort, a bit of recognition for the things that you're dealing with. I know that I'm not always sure of myself, that I doubt the work that I make and wonder if it's good enough. But I also know that my efforts are still appreciated by those around me. And I know that yours will too. And remember, practice makes perfect. Most of the people that you see out there are practiced because that's the things that you see. The more skilled the work is, the more easily it is shared. And yet, if you look around, you can see that many people also began at the beginning. And with self-esteem, it is the same. The more you learn, the stronger you become. you're allowed to focus on yourself, to appreciate what you are, who you are, what you can do. And you know what? I'm proud of you. I know that you can do it. And look at that. So many words, some of them quite long and complicated, while others just flowed by so easily. There might still be a soft need to say yes every now and then, but it will fade. And it's nice to just take a deep breath and let the last thoughts fade away. In a moment, I'm going to give a really nice suggestion, and it will find its way to figure out the part of your unconscious that can build on your self-esteem. Because in the end, all the change comes from inside. It's you doing it. I'm no more than a few words, a light, a guidance. All the steps you take are yours. You can be proud of those. Even something as simple as deciding to listen, letting it play to the end, following, reading and forming yourself. Every step you take to improve yourself is something that you're allowed to be proud of. And those steps don't have to be drastic. Real change is subtle. It takes time. Give yourself that time to change. You can't become skilled in just one moment. It takes many. You know, there's many stories about self-esteem. A lot of fairy tales and bedtime stories. I'm sure that I've forgotten so many of them by now that I almost wish I could tell them all. But we don't have that much time. Well, I know that I'm sure that a bedtime story right now would be lovely. And yet, I feel that if I tell a bedtime story now, you might just drift off to sleep completely. Not that that's a bad thing, obviously. Bedtime stories are nice. They allow us to snuggle up, get comfortable, and settle down to listen. To let yourself be inspired by the heroes of the story. And sometimes the heroes of the story are just a normal person doing normal things. Because there is a story in all of us. And there's a wonderful story in you. I wonder what adventures you will get up to tomorrow, or what kind of tales that you have from yesterday. Today, however, is a little different, because right now you're here listening. I know the story that you're experiencing, because you're listening to this right now. In a way, I'm writing your story, but I'm not really. I'm just teasing. But that's okay too. listening and allowing yourself to be inspired by things around you is a very positive thing. Because the world around us can be so inspiring. Sometimes we see what not to do, but most of the times we do get inspired by positive things. And I know you're a good person. You're capable. I look forward to see or hear or experience whatever you will create. Maybe something small, maybe something big. Who knows? That's not up to me. Oh, before I forget, I was going to tell a bedtime story. There's a book by a Dutch writer about two children living in an apartment building. And it's the usual children's novel stuff about how they get surprised by a bee, or how they're confused that their dog doesn't understand anything. But there's also very nice things about one day how they were really trying to help their mom with cleaning up, using the vacuum cleaner and mostly doing a good job. But unfortunately, some flowers did suffer and got sucked up in the vacuum cleaner. Aww. But the mom simply laughed a little and asked them to stop and put them to different tasks. And it made them feel good that they were able to help, that they were able to be useful, even if they weren't clear on exactly how a vacuum cleaner worked. They still tried it out, and when it didn't, listened and did something else. After all the cleaning was done, they were proud of their part in it, and they felt happy to have done something good, even if some flowers did, well, not entirely survive the process. Don't worry though, they lived close to a forest and it was easy to get some new ones from Mom. So everything turned out all right in the end. And now, I hope you've enjoyed the story, and it's also time to wake again, so I'm going to count you up. And as I do, just take a moment to let your mind go through whatever you've heard, put it in the place where it serves you best and it helps you out. I know that your unconscious can do this all by itself. 1, 2, slowly waking, 3, 4, more aware, 5, 6, almost there, 7, 8, almost awake, and 9, 10, wake. And welcome back. And there we go. Whew. I'm sorry for repeating a few times, but I bumped into the desk. If you missed the whole thing, well, first of all, you can, of course, go back in time, but the file will also be uploaded shortly after the live on hypno.nimja.com. And I believe there were some children outside, I'm sorry. But I guess it works a little bit with the setting anyway. Unfortunately, I do not have a fancy recording studio, so I am sometimes left to the to fate. Now, it is time for the Q&A. And yes, poor plants, but I mean, it was just a few flowers. And you're very welcome. I'm not surprised that many of you are now hovering in little space. But I guess that's a small price to pay for a nice bedtime story. Also, forgive me for that pun. Unless I didn't say a pun and everyone is now very curious. So, let's begin the Q&A. Let me see, I don't see any questions yet. And indeed, it was a very flowery file. Menacing Midnight Star asks, what was the whole thing about? Well, it was about sweet self-esteem, which is also in the title. What did I have for dinner? Chicken tandoori. Incurable, oh my god. Incurable or insecure Cocoa Pebble Hall. Wow, that is an interesting, word put together. Who says, sir, my birthday is tomorrow. Well, happy birthday in advance. Eternal Fancy asks, will you ever make more interactives? At some point, possibly. Ariana Gamma asks, favorite Weird Al song? I don't know. I mean, he's made a lot of good ones. White and Nerdy, I believe, is his most popular ones, although possibly All About the Pentiums, because when All About the Pentiums came out, like Notorious B.I.G. and some other guy were doing lots of rap stuff. And for some funny reason, Weird Al's rap seemed so much more interesting. Shante asks, have you ever tried to hypnotize someone without them noticing at all, with their consent, but completely without their awareness of it? Yes. Eternal Fancy asks, when did you decide you wanted to be a programmer? That wasn't really a conscious decision other than me enjoying programming a lot. HP asks, are you looking forward to Ready Player 2? I actually didn't know that it was being made. Kuro asks, so then, man-child, how old are you? My age is on the site. I am 39 currently. Let me see. Alpha Wolf asks, what are your favorite video games? Yeah, it varies. I was playing... what's the name again? Red Dead Redemption 2, but I find it kind of slow and annoying. And I was also playing some Megaton Rainfall, which is an older game. Favorite Discworld books? Pyramids, probably. But again, like, there's a lot of really good Discworld stuff, so having one seems like a kind of a shame. Blast Purpras, would you rather stay at home or go outside? I mean, walking like is nice, but I do sit at home a lot because I'm a nerd. Any anime I'm currently watching? I was watching something very silly. Scissor 7. Or yeah, Scissor 7. Eternal Fancy asks, can you read music? Very slow. I do play a bit of music. Casey Serena asks, do you have a favorite Disney princess? Not particularly. Ultraviolet Lily asks, how long have you been learning or talking English? Very, very, very long. Also because I grew up with cartoons in English. Marita asks, does Amsterdam feel different this summer with the lack of international tourism? See, I don't go into the center that much, and unfortunately, I think there's still a surprising amount of people visiting. Blasper asks, what did you want to be when you were young? I mean, when I was young, I wasn't like, I need to be this. So, I don't know. I like the idea of programming games, but the more I looked into it, the more disappointed I got. Eternal Fancy asks, do you dream in English or Dutch? It varies. Brian asks, how does culture play into hypnosis? Would you have to do anything differently in order to hypnotize someone from a very different culture? Yes. But it has more to do with communication than hypnosis itself. Like, culture affects communication. The same things don't have the same meanings to people. Ari asks, so I know you have a long list of file ideas, but I was wondering if you go through them in order, or if you just pick the one you're in the mood to make. I always go for mood. I do this for fun. It's not an obligation to make, like, this file now, so by just doing what I feel like, I have way more fun. Julie asks, who would you like to switch lives with, any fictional character, and why? Well, see, the thing is, most fictional worlds are terrifying if you actually think about them. I think reality is a lot safer than most fictional worlds. Eternal Fancy asked, if you were able to make Nimja ink a real thing, would you? I mean, I don't know about the incorporated part because that's a type of company. But I could easily, like, it's not that difficult. Would I? Probably not, because I'm not a brand. Florax asks, how long is your list of file ideas? Over 380. And Madame Blackamus Prime asks, do you know your moon sign? Not off the top of my heart. Kathy Savo asks, have you ever played Warframe? I have not. Kuro asks, do you have merch or will you have merch? No, and you can see on my About page why. Casey Serene asks, what are your opinions on pet play in the BDSM community? That's totally fine. Blast Purple asks, did you have a plushie when you were young, and what was it? I think everyone has plushies when they were young. And anyone who says that they didn't probably don't remember. I don't think I've ever seen like anyone who didn't have a plushie. And I had a small monkey and a bear. Julie Garnell asks, if there's a zombie apocalypse and you survived, would you still go live and record files? I probably would have different priorities. I mean, I doubt that hypnosis works on zombies. No brains, you see. Caitlin asks, favorite song at the moment? I don't really have one. Mackenzie asks, what's your favorite kind of story to tell and why? Well, that depends on the context and the moments. Kati Savo asks, have you ever watched either of the Iron Sky movies? Is that the one with Nazis on the flip side of the moon? The narrator asked, do you have any more bad jokes? Yes, but I won't share them. They're bad. They're terrible. Why do you ask me to share them? Ava asks, is it possible to do a stealth induction on consenting subjects, as they're already anticipating it to happen? Yes, because they don't know when. Eternal Fantasy asked, if you could have any superpower, which would it be? So for practicality, I would want to have Wolverine-style regeneration, because it basically means you live forever, you can't die, and you don't get sick. Otherwise, Charles Xavier mind reading would be interesting as well. Being able to push minds might also be very interesting, but much more complex. Avera asks, how do you stay motivated when something goes wrong when making a file? I accidentally deleted my most recent drawing based on Starry Night, and it's definitely a struggle to start again. So if you accidentally delete your work, this has never happened to me. The thing is, when you make work, the most effort is not in making the work, it's in figuring out what you want to do. So when you make it again, you'll actually find that the whole process goes a lot faster and a lot smoother. And as far as I know, this happens to everything. So with programming, with art, with music, if you remake something, it usually goes faster. Julie asks, be the main character or villain in a movie or series? Villains are usually more interesting. There's a few main characters which are interesting, but it's kind of sad that writing-wise, villains gets more depth. Then again, like if you actually look at my behavior, I would be a hero because I'm definitely on the good side of the spectrum. Blast Purple asks, do you read poems? I even write them. Also, villains generally have more style. Chill Station asks, would you say you tease people a lot? I'll answer that later. Laura Roberts asks, why does resisting trance deepen it? And why does fractionation do this too? Well, resisting trance is actually not resisting trance, it's still participating in the process. Harish asks, why don't I get hypnotized easily? Because you're not participating. There is some suggestions on hypno.nimja.com/help. The narrator asks, how similar are hypnosis and poetry? Not at all. Hypnosis is a process to achieve trance. Poetry is a communication of language. I mean, you can use one for the other, but they're not like in any way directly related. Casey Serena asks, what do you do if a sub doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning? Well, that depends. There are a few fun ways to inspire them out of bed. Fun for me, anyway. Jasmine asks, have you watched Japan Sync 2020 on Netflix? I have not yet. Eternal Fancy asks, what's the least efficient way to make something, bit by bit? I mean on a computer, like literally write bits. Also see the previous live for like me speaking in bits. Flora X asks, do you get inspiration from HypnoHub sometimes? I mean, if someone links me. I don't actively go on there at the moment because I have too much on my mind. I used to visit there like sometimes in the past. Menacing Midnight Star asks, have you heard of Beastars? I have seen season 1. I thought Beastars was okay. What was the really great anime series that I saw about animals in like a city of animals? What is it called? It's BNA. BNA is way better than Beastars. Like, if you only watch one animal show on Netflix, I highly recommend BNA over Beastars. Eternal Fantasy asks, what's your favorite fruit? I enjoy the humble apple. Beastars is still pretty fun, by the way, but I felt one season went nowhere. There's like 2 big questions in the first season and neither of them gets answered. Jess Barth asks, how did you get into doing this? I was curious, I enjoyed it, and I did more. Kati Savo asks, why does my mouth feel dry sometimes after a trance? It's because you're breathing through your mouth and you leave your mouth open, sort of like mindlessly. Subdued Use asks, speaking of anime, have you seen Kimetsu no Yaiba or Demon Slayer? I don't think so. I have seen a bit of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Chill Station asks, if you could go anywhere, where would you go? Probably Canada. Kiteka asks, how was the online meetup? Quite nice. It needs some improvement. Vika asks, what should I do if I feel really bad? Well, if you're serious about that, then professional support would be very helpful. Think of a therapist as like a doctor for your mind. And there's nothing wrong with like going to a doctor if you have an injury. So consider yourself having an injury and consider professional support. Eternal Fantasy asks, without the pandemic, where would you go if you had to live in another country? Right now, I don't think I would want to live in any other country because a lot of countries are having a lot of issues. Blasperbras, would you rather go to the beach or into the forest? Forest, give me shade, wind, and cool. Also, forests are really pretty. Florex asks, would you consider doing an online meeting again? Yes. Let me see. Oh, Brian asks, if you had to pick, what is your favorite tool in the hypnotist toolbox? Confusion and conversational is like really cool. And what is your favorite fish? Well, I mean, for flavor, either salmon or mackerel. Ooh, Jimmy Chavo asked the important question. Dog ear or bookmark? Bookmark. Don't destroy your books. I really prefer to keep my books in good order. If I see someone folding a page of my, they can do whatever they want to their books, but if they do it to my book, I'm like, no, don't do that. Bogdan the Lurker asked, favorite meat? Probably chicken because it's really versatile, but I quite like all kinds of things. And the funny thing is, it's not difficult to get a bookmark. All you need is a post-it or any random piece of paper. You don't need anything complicated to make a bookmark. You could even tear off a corner of an envelope that you got in the mail and recycle it and be good for nature. Caitlin asks, favorite cake flavor? There's this lemon cake that Sparkly makes, which is really nice. However, there's a Swedish chocolate cake that is very tasty. Avira asks, do you cook a lot? Yes. What's your favorite thing to cook? I have a few favorite dishes, mostly surrounding spinach, and either with pasta or something else. I like simple meals with a lot of flavor. Subdued. Sorry, I had to read that twice. Lissy Lou says, I saw an alignment chart based on how you mark your books, and dog earring was labeled as chaotic evil. Yeah, I believe that. And yes, Sparkly's lemon drizzle is really good. And no, not Stampot. Stampot is nice, but it's a lot of work and not that nice. It's really good for winter, though. It's a really nice filling meal. Brian asked, on the subject of books, how do you feel about people who save their place by just laying the book's plate open on the current page? Let's not go there. Chill Station asks, who's your favorite villain? Favorite villain? That's a tough one, actually. See, it's really easy to answer the Joker, but at the same time, he's been overdone so much. So I don't know. I mean, Deadpool is sort of a villain, but not quite, and it's difficult. And Lord Vetinari, I don't think is a villain either. Eternal Fancy asks, what percentage of cocoa do you like your chocolate? Oh, like 60%. I like pretty dark. I like many villains, but Olivia Octavius gets a like. I don't think she was that special. Actually, Otto Octavius is a very interesting character. If you go beyond the original animated series, Otto Octavius is like not as much a villain as most of the Spidey villains. Lynn asks, what about milk chocolate? It's fine. I just prefer dark. What's really nice is in the Netherlands we have chocolate sprinkles. And there's mixed chocolate sprinkles with dark, milk, and white. And it's actual chocolate too. And Brian, while it would be tempting to do any like Disney song, I don't think Disney would enjoy it if I start singing anything of them. I think they're very happy with their copyright strikes. Eternal Fancy asks, do you have a favorite shape? A regular one. And they're not chocolate curls, they're sprinkles. Emily Mao asks, if expecting chocolate chips in a cookie, getting a raisin is a bad time, yes or no? I mean, the thing is, raisins aren't bad by themselves. They can be really nice and they can be chewy. But yeah, if you're expecting chocolate and you're getting a raisin, you'll probably feel hard to come by. Blasper asks, what time of the day or night would you consider yourself to be most creative or productive? It varies. I quite like mornings, but I'm also okay in the evenings. I do recordings more, usually more in the evenings. Kati Savo asks, what is the weirdest comment someone left on your videos? Well, I'm always reminded on a specific one that is no longer visible online, but I get some pretty weird ones. There's some troll comments as well. In the beginning I didn't remove troll comments, but now I do because they're not worth the attention. Speaking of a villain, what about a Jafar Jasmine roleplay? Don't do anything with copyright protection. Oh, that's an interesting question. Do you know what your love language is? Either giving, receiving, or both, like physical touch, quality time, gifts. The whole love language thing is a very limited perspective on sharing love. And I don't think I would have an easy time classifying the things that I do for people. Caitlin Billis asks, have you ever tried binaural files? I have. However, I'm not going to use binaural beats. And while I've considered for a while, and one of my audio friends can confirm this for me, to use a stereo microphone, it actually takes me away from you, because as soon as I have a stereo microphone, my voice is no longer in your head, it's like next to you. Samira says, hi, I'm your biggest fan. Well, are you cooling? Also, no. Brian asks, have you ever considered using costume contacts in your hypnosis routine? I imagine you could do some very fun things using your eyes for inductions if your pupils were, say, violet or red. I'm very careful with what I put into my eyes. And those costume lenses can be bad for your eyes. And I went through all the effort of getting my eyes lasered, be ashamed to ruin them now. Casey Serene asks, are you a soft dom, hard dom, or bread tamer? Yes. Eva asks, what do you think works better for a deeper effect, if the conscious mind is actively listening to, or if its off and suggestions reach the unconscious directly? Well, a deep trance tends to be better, so the conscious mind is no longer actively listening. Dylan asks, do you ever feel awkward when speaking in your strict voice for files? I don't think so. Lacrima asks, anime subbed or dubbed? That depends on the anime. See, for some animes I prefer like with subtitles, but with others I prefer the dubbed version because the subtitles are really weird quality. The other thing is, dubbed is very often nowadays a better translation. Just a Little Me asks, what's a profession you feel like you don't have the skill for but would love to do? I don't know. Bogdan the Lurker asks, what sort of lines should a sub not cross or risk going too far? It has more to do with intentionally hurting. Like, if a submissive is actively trying to hurt the dominant or actively going against. See, bratting isn't really going against. It's sort of a game of back and forth. But when you're actually trying to aggravate someone, that's not fun. It's the same as trolling. Trolling is pointless. It's not funny to hurt other people. Nika asks, are there more Brad files on your ideas list? Oh, yes. Eternal Fancy asks, what's the most memorable question or comment someone said? The most memorable one was one during a live light that resulted in an instant server mute of that person. I'm not going to repeat it here. Jay asks, favorite color? It's interesting that you should ask that. It's been asked before a few times. The clear blue of a winter sky. Brian asks, are there any other online hypnotists out there that you have a lot of respect for? Asking for a friend who wants to expand her repertoire. Yeah, I mean, Lex from Entrancement UK is a lovely fellow. And I believe Shibby is doing a really good job as well. Then there's Ultra and Fiona, who are good people as well. Yeah, there's lots of good people. Veka asks, what's your favorite anime genre? I don't understand the question. Sariana asks, sir, did you ever have to stop a BDSM session because of a laugh flash? Don't think so. I mean, giggles happen, but you can do things with them. Steph Amy asks, what's your favorite old school game? I don't know if Half-Life 1 counts as old school. It probably does. Otherwise, like Super Mario Bros. 3. Blast Pepper asks, do you have a favorite metaphor? Life is like a box of chocolates. No. Not really. Dylan asks, do you have any more interviews coming up? Nothing is planned at the moment. Mokali asks, what do you think about keeping count of times listened to amnesia-heavy files? I mean, yeah, it might be smart not to overdo it in general, I think. Alpha Wolf asks, what kind of file do you enjoy doing most? Well, the file I feel like in that moment. So sometimes I feel strict, sometimes I feel more relaxed. Blast Purple asks, light bulb or LED? Well, nowadays they're the same. Unless you mean incandescent versus LED, and where LED is superior. Like incandescent is a nicer color light, but we've long since managed to match that, and LED is less hot. Rebecca Kite asks, I saw you have a tickling file for people with membership on somewhere. Actually, so the tickling file is available for people because patron files get released after a year, except for a rare few. Alpha Wolf asks, what about halogen lights then? They're very cool, but also kind of fragile, which is a shame. Chill Station asks, what's your favorite movie quote? I mean, the V for Vendetta speech is pretty nice. But it's a difficult quote to do. Lynn asks, silk, satin, or leather? Yes, please. Just a Little Me asks, are you more comfortable in casual clothes or somewhat nicer clothes when in public? I mean, I think my normal style is like on the nicer side, but I'm not sure. Casey Serene asks, sir, can you save something for your littles? Please? Now, little one. Don't demand too much. Brian asks, have the skills involved in hypnosis, understanding of psychology, methods of speech, ever proven useful to you in a real-world situation outside of a hypnosis context? Yes. Actually, the more I've learned, the more I've also improved and grown as a person, which makes me less annoying during work meetings, for example. Bogdan the Lurker asks, do you ever wonder what your life would be like if you never got into hypnosis? I mean, I don't know how I would answer the question. I would be still doing my own things. I've done lots of other things, like hypnosis is not the only thing I do. I've made music, poetry, writing, I play games, I read, so I would say hypnosis is a part of what I do, but not all that I do. Avira asks, would you consider making a live, including a trigger for you to use during the Q&A? Maybe something involving typing. I don't know. I do like keeping the trance part to the trance part. Blast per brass. When you look out of the window at night, do you look at the stars or at the moon? Yes. Steph Amy asks, what are your thoughts about the Mandela effect? I am 100% in agreement with Captain Dissolution on the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is basically that people misremember things and then think that it's something from an alternate universe. Music Maniac asks, what is your hypnosis origin story? What was the moment you were into it? The second sentence makes it much less mysterious. When I was 11, I read a science magazine where hypnosis was mentioned, and that got me curious. We have about 14 minutes remaining. Ultraviolet Lily asks, do you think we're living in a simulation? Well, it doesn't really matter, because whether we're living in a simulation or not, we have to deal with what we have. Jezebel, like, it will help to look at the Captain Disillusion video, because that's definitely very helpful in learning what it is. Stephanie asked, have you ever had a "this is my villain origin story" moment before? I don't think so. Esme Poverick asks, how do you say tsundere? Like that. Bogdan the Lurker asks, would you ever like to go to Mars? Yeah, but I would only do that if it's, like, affordable. Which it won't be for a while. Eternal Fancy asks, do you think it would be good or bad if we found aliens? I mean, it would probably distract a lot of governments from their own problems. Let's just hope that it'll be like a positive meeting. Flora X asks, what are your hard limits, the things you don't want to do in BDSM? Well, I have a limits list, and so should you. But basically it is anything to do with racism or sexism or hate of any kind, and anything that is like damaging to the body on a long-term basis. Jay asks, do you have a favorite planet? I quite like Earth. Caitlin asks, what does BDSM stand for? Bondage, dominance and submission, and sadism and masochism. It's kind of a weird acronym. Just Little Me asks, what is your preferred drawing material? An empty canvas. But yeah, I do art in like different ways. So sometimes with pencil on paper, sometimes like digital. Sleepy Doll asks, have you ever thought about making your own video game? I made a game. One of the visuals is a game, and I've actually made other games as well, but more like prototypes of different ideas. I've have different video game ideas, some of them more RPG-like, other more action-like or FPS-like. It varies. I grew up with a lot of different games. I made some prototypes in Flash. And the visual is the tunnel one. Ultraviolet Lily says, you like being smug, huh? Not really, I'm more playful. Blast for Brass, look at a blank surface right now. What is the first thought that pops into your head? I mean an audience. Casey Serena asks, ropes, chains or handcuffs? Yes. Eternal Fancy asks, would you ever animate? Yes. Laura Roberts asks, where can we read your vampire stories? Well, if you're smart, you'll find it very easily. Sleepy Doll asks, what is your second favorite color? Ooh, I don't think we've had that question about colors before. I don't really have a specific, like, favorite color. Alpha Wolf asks, would you ever consider doing another werewolf story? Oh yeah, I will. I just don't know when. Usually I save those kind of stories for Halloween month. Brian asks, what are your thoughts on hypnosis in space? Conditions away from our planet can often be stressful. Does hypnosis have a place far from Earth? Well, hypnosis is a tool. It can be used anywhere and everywhere. Sariana asks, I'm curious, in Vampire the Masquerade, which clan would you join in and why? Well, probably Malkavian. I don't think I have any other choice. Fallon Johnson asks, coolest place you've been to on vacation? The most north I've been has been Sweden. And coolest place, I don't know. Like, there's many countries are cool for very like different reasons. It's like I can't just say that Budapest is cooler than Scotland because the buildings there are really fancy, but in Scotland the landscape is really awesome. Bogdan the Lurker asks, what does the most peaceful place on earth look like to you? Big lake next to a forest or connected to a forest. So ideally like walking into a forest, coming out on a big lake. Kati Savo asks, what is the silliest joke you've made during a live? Something, something, pancake, something. Sub-Superficium asks, what are your dreams like? For example, is it often like you're really there? Yeah, most of my dreams are very vivid. Sleepy Doll asks, what is your favorite time of day? Now. Eternal Fantasy asks, how long was the longest plane ride you've been on? I don't remember, only a couple of hours. Music Maniac asks, how do you play your tunnel dive game? Do you use arrow keys? You can actually use whatever method you want. You can tap the screen, you can use a mouse, you can use the arrow keys. On like laptop and computer, arrow keys are the easiest. Insecure Idiot asks, wait, Nimja, do you live in the Netherlands or Belgium? You sound Dutch. I am Dutch. I live in Amsterdam. Hummus asks, how's the patron event in America looking? Well, it's not going too great over there, so postponed until further notice. Flora asks, any good book recommendation about hypnosis or BDSM? Reality is Plastic. So a nice one to begin with. Steph Amy asks, could you tell us a joke in Dutch? I would have to think. Joke in Dutch. It's been a while actually since I said a Dutch joke. Blasper asks, what is your favorite emoji? It's just a simple smiley face. Marita Littlefoot asks, could you say, hush now, little one, for us, please? Yes. Katie asks, how do you find the time to have fun? You make the time. 5 minutes remaining. Brian asks, what are your thoughts on gaslighting? Ugh. That's all I'm going to say about gaslighting. Stupid. Nika says, just say the last silly joke. What is pancake in Dutch? Pannenkoek. Although there is some discussion if it's pannenkoek or pannenkoek. Eternal Fancy asks, will you answer the question you'd said you'd answer later? Well, I mean, I'm a bit of a tease. Bogdan the Lurker asks, is there a series, game or otherwise that you've been wanting to get into? I mean, if I want to get into it, I do it. Kati Savo asks, what's a food you like that most people don't? See, most people is a tricky thing. Cheese, licorice, and peanut butter in the Netherlands are very, very, very different from in the US and in the UK. So liking or disliking either of any of those doesn't say anything about how they actually are here. And here they're quite commonly liked. And Just a Little Me asks, what's your favorite insect? Well, technically not an insect, but I prefer spiders because they kill mosquitoes. Other than that, I mean, bees are pretty cool. Like, they help us survive. And mayonnaise. Yes, mayonnaise in the Netherlands is very, very different. It's actually tasty here. Sleepy Doll asks, do you prefer watching movies at the cinema or at home? Well, kind of at home. Like, sometimes it's nice to go out to the cinema, like go through the whole fancy process. But it's surprisingly expensive, and there's always someone that doesn't put their phone away or talks, which is annoying. Dinich asks, what is your opinion about toads? They're fine. Just a Little Me asks, do you have a favorite subtle sign of submission? That's a very interesting question. But it's one that I'm not going to answer, because answering that makes people want to show it, and I don't want them to do it consciously. See, the whole fun is to see it happen naturally. Eliza asks, do you have such a calming aura naturally, or have you practiced it somehow? Well, I mean, I would say that a calming aura comes from being calm, just, practicing calm yourself. All right, I'm going to answer the last two questions. Katie Sava asks, how many hours do you normally sleep each night? I aim for 8 at least. For lives, that's a bit more difficult. Oscar asks, do you lucid dream? No, I kind of like my dreams to just flow naturally. Okay, fine, I'll answer this one because it's a portal question. On the subject of villains, how do you feel about GLaDOS or Wheatley, for that matter? Based on your experience, do you think their psychological development was reasonable and well portrayed? I mean, they're game characters, they're caricatures. They're not real people and not intended to be real people. Wheatley was annoying and intended to be annoying. GLaDOS is supposed to be very interesting, and I do actually find her story arc the most interesting, and I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone. But it is worth playing Portal 2 for the whole background on GLaDOS. Anyway, yes, that was the final question. And yeah, I'm allowed to answer it because it's my show and I'll do what I want to. I make the rules here. Anyway, Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much for liking, commenting, subscribing, for being awesome human beings. And thank you for your support in all the different ways. This was Nimja Live. Wake.